Alright, and hello everybody, I'm the SweetBro27, and welcome to another Dokkan battle video. Now, today we have a little bit of an interesting one. There is a very common saying in the community right now that outside of the main celebrations, a lot of the Dokkan Fest and other summonable units were kind of misses. So, these are the two banners that I summoned on where I got some of these characters in question that, you know, their reputation isn't very good. We have Hellfighter 17 on the left, and then we have Dokkan Fest KALE on the right. Now, these are very fun events. I run them today. We will be doing the Omega event first, and then later on, we will be doing the Mortal Will event up against the Trunks. So to start this off, while things are a little bit slower, I wanted to actually read their kits so we can maybe understand why they're kind of frowned upon and how they're built looking like through the community lens. So we're going to start off with Hellfighter 17. He leads Join Forces and Target Goku, 3 ki and 170 to stats, and then he gets the additional 30% to androids. He has a not good leader skill, just to be blunt. His own side banner unit isn't even on his 200%. Mainly, like, Joined Forces is more of a super class team as opposed to an extreme class. And Target Goku, you do have some options. Like, you have the physical androids, which just recently EZA'd. You do have, like, Ma Jr. and a lot of these other characters. But having androids be the 30%, I feel like just kind of clashes. He doesn't cover very many. He hits a lot of characters, but not a lot of them are on a 200%, if that makes sense, which is bad. His super attack, he stacks attack, raises defense for 1 turn, and does immense damage to the enemy. Not bad. Raising his attack is not the best. I would much rather him stack defense than offense. You'll especially see why once we get a little bit further into his kit. Then, for his passive skill, he gets 2 ki and 100 to stats at the start of turn. That's very low. He gets an additional 1 ki and 70% attack and defense when all allies in the same turn are extreme class. Very rarely are you going to get that because most of his extreme class setups aren't very good. You'll see, though, we do run him on an extreme class against Trunks in the Mortal Will event. He gets an additional 70% attack and defense when he does a super attack. He launches an additional attack with a 30% chance of becoming a super attack. He launches an additional super when there is a super class enemy for 4 turns from the start of turn. He has a chance to perform a crit and a chance to dodge plus 17% within the same turn with each attack performed. So, this guy has to basically be full additional because of that. Because if he launches 2 additionals, that is a 34% chance of being able to dodge and also crit. And then again, if you're going up against a superclass enemy, he does get that guaranteed additional for those first couple of turns, which can make him a little bit more formidable. But even still, that's basically, he has a medium chance to dodge. And to get that medium chance to dodge, you have to have a medium chance of launching an additional super. So you stack all these 30% chances, and you can kind of see why his base form is frowned upon. Not a great leader skill, not a very great kit. And then he has a really bad active skill restriction. So it can be performed when HP is 70% or less starting from the 5th turn from the start of battle. That is what the that's what the Worldwide Download Celebration anniversary units they have for their domain and their fusion respectively. But they at least have 2 possible ways of doing it. You know, they have the option of if there is a Future Saga enemy, I believe is their restriction, they are able to do it on the next turn. He has no other way of doing this. If you are above, you could have 71% HP and you're going to be stuck with Hellfighter 17, who is a stinker. Especially since, again, we are in a meta where AoEs are so prominent, you run into that problem all the time where he gets his dodge post-super attack. So what are you supposed to do against these attacks that are at the start of the fight? Or even later on, if you're not able to transform against Omega Shenron, what do you do then? You're stuck. It's very unfortunate. And his link set, he can't really decide on what he wants to do. He has Brutal Beatdown, Android Assault, Shocking Speed, GT, Nightmare, Feared Faith, and Fierce Battle. So does he want to be run with other androids? Does he want to be run with other GT bosses? Does he want to be run on a GT team? Like, he can fit, theoretically, with his links. You can run him on a bunch of different setups, and you'll be proccing different links. But, like, Android Assault, you want to be running him with, like, the Tech androids, or MVP 17, or the TOP androids. Same with, like, Shocking Speed. But then GT, you want to run him with, like, Tanabata Goku. You want to run him with, like, Super Baby, Omega, and all these other things. And then, you know, you have, like, Brutal Beatdown, Nightmare, and Fear and Faith. So it's like, oh, well, like, the Fusion Zamasu team. Those are where you're really going to get those links the most often. So it's a little bit jumbled. And then in terms of categories, his categories aren't great either. Android, Joined Forces, Artificial Lifeform, Target Goku, Inhuman Deeds, Power Absorption, GT Bosses, Battle of Fate, and Fused Fighters. Now, before we get into the Super 17 part of the kit, I do also want to acknowledge mine is only at 55%, and he is not fully Link level 10, whereas my KALE is 90%, and she is Link level 10. But that aside, I feel like that doesn't have any bearings on anything. The base kit for Hellfighter 17 is just not good, okay? He could be rainbowed, and I feel like my opinion would not change. I think he's just outright a stinker, unfortunately. And things do get slightly better, but not a lot, once you transform into Super 17. So his new super attack, he greatly raises attack and defense for 1 turn, immense damage to the enemy, and greatly lowers defense. You were never, ever, ever going to get that to proc, the greatly lower defense part. His new passive is he gets 3 ki and 170 to stat, so he's getting 3 ki and an extra 70 at the start of turn, not bad. He gets an additional 170% attack when he performs a super attack, no defense, we don't like that. He gets 34% damage reduction for 4 turns from start of turn, and then he gets an additional 17% damage reduction. So, for the first couple turns, he's actually going to have a pretty substantial amount of defense. What is that? That is, off the top of my head, really quickly trying to do math. That is 54. That is 54% damage reduction for 4 turns, and then after that, whoop womp, you're stuck with just 17% damage reduction. I complain about 30% damage reduction. You think I'm going to be praising 17? Absolutely not. He launches an additional attack that has a 50% chance of becoming a super attack within the same turn after receiving an attack. Not great. He gets an additional 17% defense with each attack received up to 170%. He has a medium chance of performing a crit when there's a superclass enemy. He absorbs a Ki Blast super attacks aimed at this character and recovers 34% of the damage absorbed as HP within the same turn if HP is 70% or less. What the fuck? That is so stupid. And then he foresees enemy super attacks when HP is 34% or less. So why is that stupid? Because most of the time, what will happen, from what I've seen, because if he super attacks before he absorbs a Ki Blast super, he's going to heal up like 89 HP. Which, that's so insignificant. That is such a stupid little thing that they did. They built his kit in such a weird way. He greatly lowers defense from turn 5 onward. From turn 5 onward, he has to get hit 10 times. He loses this massive amount of damage reduction that he has after 4 turns. And he has a scouter when HP is 34% or less, but I feel like on all of his teams, if you're below 34% HP, you're just dead. Not great. I'm not very high on this guy, unfortunately. I do like Super 17. I am like that. I kind of defend that arc in GT just because of how like neat I think the entire concept of it was. Execution was bad. So yeah, this guy definitely a stinker on both forms. But now we can move over to KALE, where things are maybe a little bit more positive. So she leads Universe 6 or Transformation Boost, 3 ki and 170 to stats, and then she leads the additional 30% to Universal Survival Saga or Full Power. Immediately, that is already way better. Having Transformation Boost as a leader skill is huge. And then Full Power is another very relevant team. Like, you could have, like, the Super Saiyan 4s on her team. You could have Orange Piccolo, who actually fits onto her team. And then Universal Survival Saga. Very shortly, you know, we're going to be getting, like, MUI and Blue Evolution. They're going to be getting their EZAs. That means they would have a 200% with her. So, her leader skill actually is not bad. Her super attack effect, though, kind of is. Greatly raise attack for 1 turn and causes immense damage to the enemy. No defense on super. I do hate that on pretty much any character that you give it to. Her passive skill, she gets 160% attack and defense at the start of turn. She gets an additional 60% attack and defense and a high chance of launching an additional attack when performing a super attack. She reduced damage received by 20% up to 60 with each super attack performed during that turn. She gets an additional 160% attack and defense and a great chance of launching an additional super attack when there's another Universe 6 category ally attacking in the same turn. So this is where the thing with KALE really rears its ugly head. She is a very good slot 2 unit, but she relies on there being a Universe 6 category ally on the turn. Now, there are plenty of options you could theoretically run in that place. You know, you have like dodging characters. You have on the run that we're using right now, I'm actually using Tech, KALE, and Caulifla because they are a stacking unit during the first phase, and then once they transform, they heal 60%, and then they become a 50-50 dodge unit. Something that is actually quite useful in this run. But like, she just doesn't have enough help because Universe 6 right now on Global is dead. I know on JP, the 60% units just got their boost, so there's now Kabe, not Kabe, is it Kaba or Kaba? I think it's Kaba. Kaba and Hit have their easy A's now, so you're able to run them, even though they don't boost her because she's AGL. Just the fact that they're so good is a huge buff to Kale. So you are able to kind of work around this restriction a lot more easily. But on, like, global, who are you really running? Like, I'm running a 2021 Dokkan Fest that's at 55%, you know? Just to kind of, like, fulfill that niche that I need. She also has a transformation active skill, which is pretty neat, which can be performed from the first turn with a Caulifla on the team, or a Caulifla on the team, or can be performed after performing 6 or more super attacks in battle. So you don't necessarily need to have the Caulifla or Caulifla. I think it's Caulifla. We'll call her Caulifla. So you don't need it, but you get. It's a lot easier. You don't want to be stuck with BESERK KALE until turn pretty much 6, because you have to launch 6 or more super attacks, not just 6 attacks, 6 or more super attacks, which can definitely, you know, rain on your parade in a lot of instances if you're not careful. And then her link set, it's decent, you know, Sand Lineage, Berserker, which I hate, Battlefield Diva, Prepare for Battle, Warriors of Universe 6, Tournament of Power and Fierce Battle. So again, she's kind of like, you can run her with pure sand characters, you can run her on U6, you can even run her on Peppy Gals if you really wanted to. She has more things you can maybe do with her. Her base form is a little bit more flexible than maybe Super 17, for example. Then she's also on a lot of categories, which is good. Peppy Gals, Universal Survival Saga, Pure Sand, Full Power, Transformation Boost, Universe 6, Super Saiyan 2. Super Saiyan 2 is a big one. Exploding Rage, Rapid Growth, Miraculous Awakening, Bond of Friendship, Power Beyond Super Saiyan, Tournament Participants, and Super Bosses, which will be the new category that is being added during the 9th anniversary. BESERK KALE alone, I think BESERK KALE is better than Super 17, if I'm being just honest, reading that kit. So much better. But if you're able to do the active skill and transform into Super Saiyan 2 KALE, you actually have, like, a very powerful unit. So her new super attack, she raises attack and defense for 1 turn, immense damage to the enemy, and then she has a chance of performing a crit, and this stacks up. So each time she does a super attack, she has a 30%, and then she has a 60%, and then she has a 90% if she launches 3 super attacks. So she can do some explosive damage. So her new passive skill, she gets 100% defense for 6 turns from the start of turn. She gets 200% attack and defense at the start of turn. She gets an additional 120% attack and launches 2 additionals, each with a 30% chance of becoming a super attack when performing a super attack. That's a mouthful. She has a high chance of guarding all attacks. She gets an additional 60% attack and defense for 3 turns after receiving an attack. She gets an additional 160% defense and guards all attacks when there's another Universe 6 category ally attacking in the same turn. So again, while, yes, you are able to play her without having the Universe 6 restriction, she is so much better with just throwing on one option. That's why you see people running, like, AGL Caulifla, just because she's a 50% chance to dodge character, who the only reason you run her is just to bolster this KALE, you know what I mean? And that's really significant. Guaranteed guard and extra 160% defense. She has multiple buffs that she gets here. I don't really think you would ever lose the 100% defense for 6 turns unless you activated her transformation, like, super early on. But she does launch, like, let's see. So you launch a super attack. She then launches 2 additionals, each with a 30% chance of being a super attack. So that is a guaranteed at least 3 attacks in a turn. Then if you put some hidden potential system in there, that's 4 attacks. Let's say they're all super attacks. You're getting multiple attack and defense raises. And then that 4th attack is a guaranteed crit, so you're very likely to do just steamroll through the enemy. And then she gets an extra 60% attack and defense for 3 turns after just getting hit 1 time. So after that 1 hit, pretty much, you're going to be able to tank very reliably. She is so explosive, and she's actually worth it, in my opinion, in a lot of instances, assuming you can get to this point. It's just her restriction is very lame. Again, in a few months, once we get like the 50/60% support characters, we may be singing a completely different tune, and that may be the revitalization KALE needs, as well as like Universal Survival Saga. It's going to be getting a major boost. So cannot overlook that. And again, just having transformation boost, that's always going to be a good team no matter what. And then also having full power as her 30%. She does have a good leader skill. Like, cannot be overstated. Then you go down to her new link set, and she gets Super Saiyan instead of BESERK, which is a massive buff. So just by reading their kits, I'm not going to hold it back. Just by reading them, I think KALE is 1,000,000,000% better than 17. But I may be surprised with these runs, so I'm actually going to start paying attention again. So let's see what's happening. Both of these characters have died once on their teams, so meaning that we are now using items on these follow-up runs. So let's kind of go over the teams that we are running. On the left-hand side for Super 17, we are running him on a, Battle of Fate and Power of Wishes team. That way we're able to utilize characters like SSJ2 Gohan, who actually has the ability to activate his active skill and transform into Super Saiyan 2. We're able to use Power Awakening Piccolo, meaning we have access to the giant transformation, which is super useful in this event. We're obviously running just 23rd World Tournament Goku for the revive, just in case we would need to use it. I believe we're running the full power Super Saiyan 4 on this team. We are. So we are running him. He's he's one of the best defensive units in the game, in my opinion. I go on and on and on about how much I love this character, even though he is only at 55%. But we are kind of running into an issue, as you can see here, with the usage of items. We don't drop below the HP threshold. So it's turn 9, and I'm still stuck using Hellfighter 17. So I actually have to put him in slot 2. That way he can get his super attacks before all these AoEs get launched, because I don't want him tanking all those AoEs without being able to super attack first. And you saw that. That was with the Whis over 200k damage. That is very, very, very not good. And then on the other side, we are running Kale's team. So for Kale, like I already said, we are running Tech, Kale, and Caulifla, who actually did very well in this run. I was actually quite proud of their performance because of how slowly you're able to go through the Tech Sin phase. You're able to give them a lot of offensive and defensive stacks. And then you have that Fusion Patara that they have in their back pocket, because once you do that, they become a 50-50 dodge character. And then as well, they give you a 60% heal for that one turn, which is something that is, again, super, 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 super good. Just in case you ever drop below that low HP threshold. Other than that, we are running a pretty much very similar designed team. They also had the GT Duo because, just having a revive is always nice. We're able to actually run 2 Tanabata Gokus, which is not something I'm the most fond of outside of this event, because you are able to go through it super, super slowly, meaning you're able to get all the hits that you need for both of them to transform. And it's very reliable to have a full power on both turns by the time you get into STR Sin. And you can see on the left, we're actually doing the Orange Piccolo transformation, meaning we're going to waste all of Omega's events, as well as we're just going to do some very decent chip damage. So on this turn right here, you can see that we're able to do the fusion. I don't believe that we actually do. I think we just use an item in this situation. I'm actually kind of curious to see what I do. I'm checking stats. I tried to be a little bit better at that, but you can also see that I am doing this at 1.5 times speed. That was recommended in the comments just to give it a try. So we're going to kind of see how this goes, if using the 1.5 times speed is actually worth it or not. But it is, as you can see on the left, we have Orange Piccolo. That is also at 1.5 times speed. Normally, I would speed that up much more, but I'm just kind of keeping everything consistent. If you guys like this change, please let me know. And as you can see there, yeah, I actually just used an item, and I was hoping for the best, that they have enough stacks. And I was able to put Kale into slot 1 there because there was only that one attack, and she has type advantage, so I really wasn't worried at all at this point. Again, she is so good. Again, mine is at 90%. She's launching multiple 7 million attack stats, building up that damage reduction. Even if it is temporary damage reduction, she can get up to 60%. Now, look at other characters this year. Like, you have, that was 4 supers, by the way. You have characters like the Intro Gohan or Sword of Hope Trunks, who get capped at 30% damage reduction for having to pretty much do very similar things. Launch super attacks, launch 18 keys, launch a bunch of additionals. Why did Sword of Hope get capped at 30? If he got capped at 60 and had the exact same kit as Kale, I feel like I would be much higher on the character. But Kale is very good, for the fact that she can get up to that 60% damage reduction as long as you launch all your additionals, and she has that chance to launch extra additionals with another U6 on the attacking turn. Now, most of the time we did float Kale and Caulifla, just because, again, they are nowhere near like a top tier unit. Again, that is a 2021 character that we're using, and not only that, I have them at 55%. They're not link leveled at all. I pretty much awakened them so that I can do the rapid growth, ESPR, because I figured they would be really good for that. So we're now entering this turn, and the scariest thing possible happened. We actually dodged. That is a 3 dodge, by the way. That is a 3 dodge on the GT Duo on Omega's super attack, and we don't actually die on this turn either, which is like the worst nightmare impossible. We're able to eat all of this just because of how high our HP was at the start of the turn. And then full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku, he's going to do what he does best, and he does a ton of damage. So I kind of hesitate here for a second because I'm like, oh my god, I screwed myself. Now, to be fair, we did have a Whis that we used on the prior turn, just because we needed to do that for like the turn I had to do with because we had KALE and Caulifla and everything. It was what I had to do, but I just pop another Whis, and I'm just praying that we were able to get through this turn. And you can see here on the left, I actually did a turn reset, something I do not very often. But I felt like I did make a misplay there, so I did reset the turn. You saw there, I even put up a little text just to make sure that I would remember to comment on it. That way we would be able to get the most amount of orbs with Super Saiyan 2 Teen Gohan and do just his explosive amount of damage and get that remarkable amount of healing. And we're actually getting a Dokkan attack over here on the right. We made it to turn 10. Omega is so fun just because, how often do you realistically are you on turn 10 on some of these events? And we're also on turn 10 over there on the left, and we're just on the cusp of getting a Dokkan attack over there. And you see there that we did really decent damage. Now look at KALE over here. This is a very explosive turn from her. Now she doesn't have her guaranteed guard on this turn, nor does she have that extra 160% defense, but that doesn't even really matter. She does, right there, 3, so this should be pretty much a 90% chance to crit right here, so it's going to crit, yep. And then, mine has 15 dodge, just for the record. And then we have 23rd World Tournament Goku, who, again, is just doing what 23rd World Tournament Goku does best, doing a lot of damage. We actually don't have the guard, because obviously we didn't die, and he did only do 1 attack, which I remembered him doing a little bit more, but it must be a different run that I'm thinking of. But that doesn't really matter. We were able to live this turn, which is what we needed to do. Obviously, I'm not going to do the heal with KALE and Caulifla, because not only did we heal with the Dokkan attack, but I need, more than anything else, I have to die this turn. Alright, and now let's go and give Super 17 some love. So now we're getting the Dokkan attack over there. We are dying over there on the right, which is awesome. That's what we need. So now 23rd World Tournament Goku is in God mode. We enter the next attacking turn with full HP yet again, and we did waste his super attack, so we don't really have to worry about super attacks on this upcoming turn. So we're very easy. We can easily put the full power Super Saiyan 4 into slot 2, or into slot 1, excuse me, KALE into slot 2, and then Teen Gohan into slot 3 over there. And yet again, we're in another sticky situation because we were using items. We weren't able to, we have to put Super 17 in harm's way so he can do all these super attacks so that he can get his chance to dodge before all these AoEs just absolutely crumble him. That was a ton of damage we took on that one AoE there. So we're really just hoping and praying that he is able to dodge, and he doesn't, and that's the end of the run there. So with using items, we didn't take enough damage, and without using items, we took too much damage. And I'm using relevant characters on this entire team. Every character on this list is, if you didn't see my tier list, go check out my tier list that I posted yesterday. But these are all top tier characters who work well with each other. And I don't know. I'm having an easier time using Tech, KALE, and Caulifla than I am Hellfighter 17, a 2023 summonable unit. I am having an easier time running a 2021 unit than I was Hellfighter 17. That is not a good look, my friend. So we are now snapping the KALE footage here into the middle. That way we can focus on it entirely, putting all of our attention into there. But it would not matter. It would not matter if he was rainbowed, even if, because I don't think you give him a full dodge build, because you give him a full dodge build, what does he have? 30 dodge? You give him full additional, that way he's able to launch more attacks. He can potentially get to way higher than that. So, yeah, not a great look from there. We only got to see the Super 17 transformation once, and it's not like he does anything on these teams that I'm using him on, you know what I mean? KALE, at least over here on the right side, or I guess now in the middle, she was providing reliable tank 2 tanking and doing a ton of damage when she transformed. What did Super 17 really provide? Even on the turn where we weren't using items, and he was dodging or whatever, and his Super 17 state, it's not like he tanked especially well, and it's not like he's dodging a whole lot. You can't put him into slot 2 with these AoEs. And very rarely is he giving me a lot of attacks. So I don't know. That was not a very good performance from 17. I played it to the very best of my ability. I even reset the turn, something that I don't do often, just so I could give him the best possible chance of surviving. and ultimately he just kind of let me down. So as we quickly flash through the rest of these things, we are getting ready to enter the runs where we went into the Mortal Will event, a character which is a superclass unit, so that means Hellfighter 17 is going to have a little bit of a buff there, and there are no AoE, so neither one of these characters have to worry about, you know, not being able to tank before they do their super attacks. So both of these runs did very well. We did change the team up a little bit. We are now running 17 on a full extreme, or not a full extreme class category, because we are running the blue fusions, the 5-year fusions, but it is primarily an extreme class Realm of God Worldwide Chaos team. You know, we have Fusion Zamasu, one of the best LRs in the game, and this should work a little bit well. We're not going to be getting links like Android Assault or GT, but we are getting other ones like Fear and Faith, Nightmare, stuff like that, you know what I mean? And then on the right-hand side, we kind of changed up the team entirely. We are now running the Pure Saiyan / Hybrid Saiyan team with God Goku. She does fit on this 200% because of Pure Saiyans and Exploding Rage. We have Sword of Hope Trunks, we have Path to Power Kid Goku, and then for the Universe 6 option, we are actually now running AGAL Caulifla. Who I did specify she is a 50-50, you live, you die. That is the only thing that she's used for. It is pretty much just, please don't get hit ever, because you cannot tank normals, and you're here just to kind of make Kale look that much better, so we were able to activate all these different parts of her passive. Now, it isn't necessarily the best when you have to float characters for Kale, because that means one turn, you know, she's going to be like Super God mode, and then entering the next attacking turn, you're not going to be able to get this ability to proc where, you know, she gets guaranteed guard and an extra 160% defense, for example. So that's why running her like on her own team would be more ideal. But again, Universe 6 is just kind of like a stinker team at the moment. So we're now, you saw there, we died turn 1 against Trunks. He did 200k per normal against AGL Fusion Zamasu, which is crazy. Again, that is a unit with 30% damage reduction who got a defensive stack off. And still died in 2 normals. That's just power creep for you. What can I really say? And this turn, we actually are going to die on... It's not God Goku who frauds us out. It's actually the Kale. She does get hit for 400k on a normal. So we really quickly refreshed the Fusion Zamasu team. So we are now on the run where we are using items. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, but we are also running Majunior. Majunior is just a god of the game. And again, he does fit onto 17's leader skill because of target Goku, but it is only a 170, which isn't the most ideal. And we didn't get very good opening rotations for this extreme run over here, because having both of my Zamasus on turn 2 is not ideal, especially on turn 1. We didn't have a unit who could tank, so I did have to use a Ghost Usher very early on. But that's kind of where, like, the Divine Wrath and Mortal Will stages are a little bit easier. While I think, like, turn 1, outside of, like, Red Zone Zamasu, most of them are more difficult. Like, I'm so serious. I think this needs to be said. If you're not using items, Red Zone Goku Black is easier than the Divine Wrath and Mortal Will VB. Just because VB can double super, each of his supers do, like, over 1 million, and then after he super attacks, his normals do 650,000. Way too much damage. I know you can debuff him or whatever, but I don't know. It's just out the gate. That event is relentless. Just saying that needs to be said. But you are able to bring 2 items into here, so if you're using items, it's a different story, obviously. But now that we have the transformation, I am using a Whis here just because I was afraid that is a lot of attack that 17 would have to tank there. And speaking of tanking, look at that. That was 122... Well, no. That was 120 damage on Sword of Hope Trunks with 60% damage reduction. Just saying. Again, that is a brand new summonable unit, taking a ton of damage. We did use a Whis, I believe. I'm pretty sure we used a Whis. I didn't actually see it, but like I'm almost positive that's what happened. I have a vague memory of running all of these. But Hellfighter 17, he's, as you can see here, he is getting his additionals or whatever. He is getting guaranteed supers, meaning that pretty much every turn he is going to have, at bare minimum, a 34% chance to dodge, which is just slightly higher than a medium. And with 40% damage reduction, collectively, that was over 300,000 damage he took on normals. Again, 55%, you can say whatever you want. That's bad. That is really bad tanking. And this turn over here on the right is amazing because I was able to get 24 ki to the GT duo, 6 orbs to God Goku, and 7 orbs to Path to Power Kid Goku. Path to Power is so good. Like, I really am geeking over this character. He's so good. They were cooking so hard when they made him. And speaking of characters they cooked really hard when making them, we have Majunior. So I am actually, something that's a little bit different. Normally when I get a giant transformation, I just hit the auto button. But because of the situation we were in, I wanted to carefully pick which orbs I received. So I was actually manually doing the Junior transformation. Again, that's not something I normally do. It's not even something I necessarily recommend, but I did kind of want to get the healing, as well as I wanted to dictate whether or not my Zamasu got a super attack or not. Most of the time, I like to go for 12 keys with Zamasu just because he gets a higher defensive raise rather than on his 18 key where he massively raises attack. He like greatly raises offense and defense, I believe, on his 12 key. I think that's what it is. Whatever it is, he gets slightly more defense on the 12 key. So every opportunity I can get, I like to try to do that. I know that's not always the easiest, especially since he does normally get like a boatload of key. It feels like, at least. So yeah, even though he does decent damage, I would rather him be defensive throughout this run, especially since, again, we're running Hellfighter 17. So we used a Ghost Usher over there, so we didn't have to worry about Caulifla in slot 3 being dead. I don't really think we were in too much of harm's way. Realistically, again, every one of those attacks would have been a coin toss. It was either we lived or we died. We know that Sword of Hope would have been able to decently tank the attacks post-super attack, so I don't really know where the super would have been. We now have Kale, who again is a little bit more explosive on this turn because she does have a U6 category ally on the turn with her, even though it is, you know, just AGL Kefla, who does like 0 damage, and we are now transforming into the physical Sword of Hope phase as we are exiting the giant transformation, and we now have the guaranteed dodge turn from Gogeta. So this is actually a super good turn for the villains over here on the left because we're able to do Majunior's active skill, which does some decent damage as well as it is an attack nullification. We then have the guaranteed dodge from Gogeta. This is his first transformation turn, and we can reliably keep him on main rotation. So on the next following turn, we are able to launch his active skill, which will do a ton of damage. And again, this is what I was talking about, how I wanted to dictate what orbs I got. So I intentionally collected the wrong amount of orbs. Even though I would have healed a bit more, I'm trying to not be above an HP threshold where we can transform into Super 17, so we can kind of see what Super 17 actually is capable of doing, as well as we can make Fusion Zamasu just a little bit tankier by launching that 12 key as opposed to the 18 key. So this is that turn went very well for the villains. Very, 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 very well. And now we have God Goku over here on the right, who is, again, he's just doing God Goku things. He's doing damage. He is dodging super attacks, which obviously we love. And then we have the GT Duo, who is going to do an explosive amounts of damage. They have type advantage, 24 key. This is what they do best. They do like the perfect amount of damage. They don't kill an enemy way too quickly, even though they stack offense. Just because they have naturally lower attack stats, even when they do like a super explosive turn where they launch a bunch of additionals, they do the right amount of damage. It is a very happy medium. I think that's why I'm very like addicted to that character with just how good they are. So we do get the 17 transformation, and I am going to float off the other Fusion Zamasu on this turn, since we floated off the Fusion Zamasu the turn prior. We did launch a Whis as well. I was uncertain of if 17 would be able to tank or not. And based off the damage he's going to take on this super attack, I'm going to say no. That was 41,000 damage with, like, again, 90-something damage reduction. Because he has 17% damage reduction. And then if I read that part of his passive correctly, he would have an extra 34% damage reduction. So that's like 50 there around. Give him an extra 40%. That's 90% damage reduction. Type advantage. He took 41,000 damage. I don't think if I didn't use that Whis, I think we would have been dead. Like, actually, I think we would have been dead. And he didn't even really do that impressive of like attack stat numbers. He really didn't do much of anything there. And on the right, we have the Sword of Hope transformation. Again, I said this a billion times. If you get this transformation, you've essentially won. You really cannot kill Trunks at all. He does so much damage, and then you enter the next attacking turn, more than likely you have won. And now we're having, yet again, another very perfect turn. We have Vegito Blue in slot 1, Gogeta Blue in slot 2, able to launch his active skill, doing a ton of damage. Now we can reliably put him into slot 3, where he will have the 70% chance to dodge and a guaranteed additional super. We can plot Vegito into slot 1. He's a perfect defensive unit right now because he cannot get hit. Guaranteed dodging. He's going to launch 2 attacks because he gets a guaranteed additional. Majunior will do some damage, and we do actually win on this turn with Gogeta finishing things off. Now we have Kale yet again doing Kale things. Again, remarkable amounts of damage. That is like 7 million. That is without having a U6 on the turn. She does link decently enough on this rotation. Again, she has like normal Saiyan links, but some of her heavy hitters like Tournament of Power, which is 3 key and 7% attack and defense. I don't know what Battlefield Diva is. I think it's 20% attack, right? I think that might be what it is. But she does have like access to Super Saiyan, which is 15% attack. That wasn't a bad offensive turn for her. And we do win on this turn. I do kind of consider what to do, but ultimately I do decide to launch the God Goku active skill so that we would be able to have the guaranteed crits and that dodge in slot 1. I was thinking he could maybe finish him off on this turn. He is not the one who does it. It is the GT duo who ultimately gets the dub. But that is it for both of these runs. So what did I think? I think Super 17 was really, really bad. And KALE was actually pretty decent. Seeing how like you just have to run a couple of these characters, it just kind of comes down to an RNG fest. But we were able to have a lot of success with KALE, and I feel like she was actually worth the investment. She did good damage, and she had good tanking. Whereas 17, I don't think he was really worth the trouble. I pulled out a lot of different gags to see if I could maybe make him look impressive, and it just never happened. Now, do I think that either of these characters are the most egregious summons that we got this year? I don't really know. The TOP androids, they are very, very hit or miss. They have very good OSTs, though. I will give them that. Both of their OSTs are good. You have Omega Shenron, who just wasn't enough for GT bosses. Obviously, this is another GT boss flop, the 17s here. You have, like, Tree of Hope. The Fruit of Might. Goku, the AoE unit, who is a major disappointment. You have Super Boo. You know, he was kind of disappointing. There are a lot of characters that were hit or miss throughout this entire year, and most of them, unfortunately, were misses. So I think, ultimately, when it comes down to the worst releases of the year, if you said it was Hellfighter 17, I don't think I would really argue with you. I think it kind of boils down to the TOP androids, just because they need a Goku without there being a good Goku. But the difference with them is they're going to get a revitalization. Again, hopefully, because MUI is more than likely going to EZA this year. And they already kind of have gotten a bit of a revitalization because we have UI Sign now, STR UI Sign on JP. And, you know, as we're going to get more and more buffs as time goes on. So I feel like they maybe have a hope, especially once we get out of the AoE meta, because that's like where they really are frauded out the most. I don't think Omega is the worst unit. I just think he's the most disappointing because he wasn't enough. Like, I think Amatsu thought Omega Shenron would be enough to revitalize the GT Bosses team when it just simply was not. You know what I mean? And like Super 17, he's a GT Bosses buff, but like he's not good enough. So I think if you boil it down between those three characters, I think they are the worst. If you said DFE Super Trunks, no, I don't think DFE Super Trunks is the worst. His banner unit is definitely up there, though. I've seen some people, like, even argue Android 21 and Volmi, but, like, no, she's just bad because AoEs against Fusion Zamasu. You able to transform into 21 Majin, she's great. So, ultimately, I think it is those three who hold, like, the title, or, like, they're the ones who are in constant competition for who is worse. 17... Android 18 and 17 and Omega, and then maybe Tree of Hope. Tree of Hope could maybe be up there, or not. Fruit of Might, whatever, the Tree of Might, whatever it is, I don't care. But that is going to be all for this time, guys. Let me know what you thought. Did you summon for either of these characters, or did you get them when they were featured on a different banner, and how disappointed were you? And let me know what you thought down below. But that is going to be all for this time, guys. I've been the Sweetbro27. I'm a variety Twitch streamer and an up-and-coming YouTuber trying to make it big in the world. I have a Twitter, a Twitch, a TikTok, and a YouTube, the links to which can all be found in the description of this video. While you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, share me around, and leave me a comment. I love when you guys interact with me, so hey, keep up all the code work, and really do share me around. You know, that way we can just grow this community, you know? You guys are awesome. I appreciate the hell out of all of you, but that is going to be all for this time, guys. So as always, I have been the Sweetbro27, and I am signing off.